Next, from Springfield, the Illinois Innocence Project gives their annual award to author Scott Turow. We'll hear his comments, as well as from Senator Dick Durbin, on Illinois' abolishment of the death penalty. And we'll hear why the Innocence Project believes there are still many innocent individuals serving time in Illinois prisons. This runs about 40 minutes.
My apologies for not being here last year. I was honored by the award. Wish that I could have been present to receive it for many reasons. I have many friends in this room. Go back to my early days as a struggling lawyer in this town, a more struggling political candidate, and things are a little different today. Throughout most of this journey, Larry Golden has always been there. Larry and I were business partners in an extremely successful venture, Crow's Mill School. And for those who think it's an educational institution, no, it was a tavern. And we developed a close friendship in those days. And I came to understand Larry's strength. One of his great strengths is meetings. He loves meetings. He still loves meetings. Form committees, let's have a meeting. Yosh, is he still doing all that? I imagine he is. But anyway, Larry, congratulations for all that you've done for this project. It is really amazing, nothing short of amazing, what has been accomplished here in terms of justice and in terms of leadership. I thank everyone in this room who is here supportive of what is happening, and especially want to thank Larry. I want to thank the law students who stood a few moments ago, and I was thinking as they stood, I can't remember a thing I did in law school that even came close to this significance, except maybe once, and that was 44 years ago last week when I was sitting in the law library and somebody came to the door and announced that Dr. Martin Luther King had been shot. Washington went in turmoil, in riot, and pretty soon the courts were overwhelmed with people who had been detained and arrested. And they became so desperate for legal representation, they came back to that library and said, second, 2 L's and 3 L's, come outside, please. Came outside and said, come with us, you're coming to the court, you're going to be representing criminal defendants. I thought to myself, I don't think I've taken that course yet. So whatever happened, it was something like justice, and it all ended well. But that was my closest occasion to come to grips with the criminal defense bar. I didn't do much of it as a private attorney. But I've certainly had a lot to do with the Senate Judiciary Committee and the issues before it. And I thank many of you in this room who made a difference in what we've undertaken. Ted Gottfried, where are you? Ted grabbed me at the airport, you can usually find me there, and told me several years ago that they were running into problems with the Appellate Defender Project and other projects because too many law students were coming out of school deep in debt and couldn't consider becoming criminal defense attorneys or prosecutors. And Ted inspired me to come up with a bill. And it eventually was named after a gentleman who had started this crusade before me, John R. Justice. And the John R. Justice Fellowship programs now will defer the student debt of those who will commit to at least 3 years as prosecutors or defenders. I wish there were a lot more money involved. Let me start off. I wish law school were a heck of a lot cheaper, but until it is, I wish there were more money involved to inspire those who want to go into public service. And the idea started right at that table with that man. Ted, you deserve a round of applause. Thank you. It's another issue that I've taken up that might be of interest to you. Last November, I was out in New York City. I spent a lot more time there than I used to because our daughter had twins, boy and a girl, 5 months ago, and my daughter left me for another man. He now weighs about 15 pounds, and he has a little sister. So I spent a lot of time in New York trying to find Loretta, and we just got back this morning. Well, last November, I was in a restaurant when I got a phone call, and it was the president, and he was calling to wish me happy birthday, to congratulate Loretta and me on our new grandchildren, and to tell me something of great significance, the best gift he could have given me, that he had commuted the sentence of a woman from Alton, Illinois, Eugenia Jennings. Eugenia Jennings was a victim of the crack cocaine sentencing disparity. She had been sentenced to 25 years in prison. and she'd served 12 of them. She left 3 children to be raised by her brother. I met her brother at a hearing we had on the crack cocaine sentencing disparity and decided this was a cause worth taking up. I wanted to bring this where it should be, 1 to 1, but I couldn't. It was at 100 to 1 for those who follow it, and many do. And we managed to bargain and compromise back and forth until it came down to 18 to 1. Still grossly unfair, but dramatically better than where it was. She was one of those victims, and there are many like her. Well, the bill was signed into law by President Obama after I negotiated it with Jeff Sessions of Alabama. Should have seen that. And Eugenia Jennings was the first commutation that the president offered, and this lady was able to spend Christmas at home with her children. She's fighting cancer and doing okay, but she became the face of this issue for me, face from our own home state of Illinois. Go back further in time to service on the committee when Patrick Leahy asked me to co-sponsor a bill to start funding these efforts to use DNA, this new thing called DNA, to see if it could become significant in terms of reviewing the sentencing that had taken place in years before. Little did we know what it would mean, but it's meant a lot. To some people in this room, very personally meant a lot, but to those of you working in this project, many times that is the hook you were looking for, to find that claim of innocence. The last thing I want to say is about the honoree tonight, Scott Turow. This is an extraordinary man. He liberated himself largely from his law practice to write books. Did pretty darn well. I liberated myself to be in politics. He gets paid for his books, I make speeches for free. But in all seriousness, what Scott did, working with former Governor Ryan on the commission to deal with the death penalty, had significance far beyond our state and far beyond our nation. I will tell you, as a person who studies politics, the drift of public opinion on the issue of death penalty you can look at the pivot point with George Ryan's decision and Scott's commission that worked with him. You can look at the pivot point in public opinion on the issue of death penalty, not just in this country, but in many other countries around the world. That's how significant his commitment has been. He is certainly deserving to be your honoree, and I was certainly honored to be the same last year. Thank you and good luck.
Thank you, Senator, as always. Timely, concise, well-spoken. I would like to mention before we go on that we are being filmed tonight by WSEC, the public television station associated with UIS, and so all your friends and family who maybe couldn't be here, they can see it this weekend on WSEC and soon to be on YouTube. So encourage them to watch and contribute. The next person that I am very honored to introduce, because I am actually a proud graduate of the University of Illinois, class of '92 for the law school, and way before that for undergrad. But when I moved to Springfield, I really was pretty unaware of the true jewel that UIS is, and I'm happy that I have been able to be involved with UIS. And recently, in 2011, the school got a new chancellor. Chancellor Cook is here, and she is making great strides in building a community sense. And I have to say, as I was Googling her, any chancellor that has an event called Chocolate with the Chancellor is really good. So here to present the award to our sister campus in Champaign, Chancellor Cook.
Let me say, if someone would remind you, we'll get you an invitation to the one next year for the chocolate. What? Because it was really good. I agree. Well, thank you so much, and thank you all for being here this evening. As the new chancellor of the University of Illinois Springfield, I am delighted to be able to say for the first time that I am part, and my campus is part, of this wonderful event tonight. Of course, we're celebrating the achievements and the contributions of the Illinois Innocence Project, based on the Springfield campus. two critical elements in the mission of UIS are to provide intellectually rich opportunities for our students and to serve our communities, local, regional, national, and global. What I appreciate so much about the Illinois Innocence Project is that it weaves together those two elements perfectly. Not only bringing justice to members of our communities who have been unjustly convicted, but also providing students with a hands-on learning experience that is of great value in their education. I want to congratulate you, Larry, the executive director of the project, along with all the members of the staff and the many students who've contributed so much to this very, very important program that is based at our university. It is my honor tonight to recognize the important collaboration between the UIS Innocence Project and the University of Illinois College of Law on our sister campus in Champaign-Urbana. I sometimes refer to that as our branch campus, but I won't do that tonight. I think that would be an error this evening, so I won't do it. But when I do it, I really do it with great love. In 2009, two students from the UIUC Law School, with the supervision of attorney and law school professor Stephen Beckett, began assisting the Illinois Innocence Project in one of the most challenging cases the project has taken on. Today, there are 5 students working on that case alone. Within a short time, other students joined in under the supervision of legal director John Hanlon, and with the additional help of University of Illinois professor Andy Leopold. This semester, there are 23 University of Illinois law students learning about actual innocence and assisting on project cases in the Innocence Project. An example of their work can be found in the case of John Grayson, who was exonerated, as you all know, on March 6th, and who you will meet later tonight. University of Illinois student Scott Schott assisted in putting together this case for exoneration. It is likely that Mr. Grayson would not be here but for the work of the talented and dedicated individuals who have been involved in this effort. I want to especially recognize the leadership of Professors Beckett and Leopold. These lawyer teachers have demonstrated a commitment to justice and an understanding of the very special educational value of this project, and their efforts deserve recognition. The UIS Innocence Project has developed a model for combining education and legal practice that is of great consequence, not only for our students and our clients, but for our entire country. This collaboration between the UIS Downstate Innocence Project, oops, I need to cross out downstate, between the UIS Innocence Project and the University of Illinois Law School is an important part of that model. Will the UIUC students here tonight who have been part of this effort please stand and be recognized? Where are you? There they are. And will Dean Smith and Professors Beckett and Leopold please come forward to accept this Defenders of the Innocent Award.
As many of you know, I'm an old trial lawyer, and so I'm the one that gets to talk. The collaboration between University of Illinois Springfield and University of Illinois College of Law at Urbana-Champaign, you notice I said Urbana-Champaign, is remarkable. It truly is a model. It's something that the Chancellor and I have been talking about earlier this evening, looking for other ways that our campuses, sister campuses, can collaborate. But I will tell you on behalf of the University of Illinois College of Law, the best thing about this, as far as I'm concerned, is my students and the clients that they represent. That's what this is all about. It isn't about administrators, it isn't about professors, it's about students, and ultimately it's about the clients. This has been, so far, a tremendous experience, and that person case that was challenging is still challenging and still goes on. I know on behalf of Andy and I, we just love the fact that our dean supports this program. He gets pressed for so many different things. For him to recognize the wisdom and vision for this program is of great benefit to us and ultimately to our students. Thank you for the award. We truly appreciate it.
I remember having Professor Beckett in trial ad. Next, I'd like to introduce somebody who is a proud graduate of Southern Illinois University, class of 2010, and he's also the new generation of public servants. Representative Art Turner has been in the state legislature for just a short time, but he follows in the footsteps of his father, who served for quite a while and was a constant drumbeat on issues of criminal justice. So I invite you to welcome to the podium Representative Art Turner Jr. to present the award to Southern Illinois University.
Thank you all. It's truly an honor to be here tonight to present from my alma mater. SIU law students have been working with the project, the Illinois Innocence Project, since 2010, and their involvement demonstrates how one voice can make a difference. Jennifer Donnelly graduated from UIS with a fire in her belly. She wanted to continue in law school the work she had done as an intern with the project, and a collaboration was born. Jennifer and 11 other SIU law students, under the direction of John Hanlon and Professors Bill Schroeder and Chris Bien, gather evidence, review court files, interview inmates and witnesses, and actually go to court on the project's cases. Their work most recently led to the drafting and presenting of a posthumous petition for a pardon on behalf of Grover Thompson, who was convicted in 1981 and died in prison in 1996. This injustice is difficult to digest, but without this project, it would have gone unrecognized. These students and faculty have been invaluable, and their continued collaboration with the project is crucial to its continued success. As a graduate of the law school, class of 2010, and a policymaker with a deep concern for our criminal justice system, I'm honored to present this award tonight to my alma mater. Will Dean Fontaine, Professor Schroeder, Professor Behan, please come forward to accept the award?
It's wonderful to be here this evening. It's wonderful to get this award on behalf of the school, and wonderful to have Art Turner, who I remember very well as a frightened first-year law student just a few years ago, presenting it to us. But like Professor Beckett, I feel very strongly that the most important part of this work is our students. I will forever be grateful for Jen Donnelly and also Angela Rollins, one of our students who is here today, for wanting so much to make a difference, that they did all the groundwork to establish our relationship with the Downstate Illinois Innocence Project, for working hard to work with our then interim Dean Frank Hodek to lay the groundwork so that they could help people who could not help themselves. That's been an inspiration to me as a professor. It's been an inspiration to me to look at the absolute dedication and devotion that all of these students have shown, and to know that this work can pay off, with doors literally being opened so that the innocent can walk out free, means everything to all of us. And it's a very wonderful and moving thing to be a part of this movement. I'd also like to thank Larry Golden, who is an inspiration to all of us, a leader, and somebody who loves this work and has dedicated his life to it. Thank you very much for this award.
Now, I have to tell you that in the organizational meetings, when we had the discussions of who introduces the introducers, and it came to the next introducer, there was very little discussion because I said, I'm doing it. And I gave myself more time than I gave everybody else too. So I am thrilled to be introducing to you a good friend and somebody who has been just an incredible colleague. Tom Sullivan. He has been a member of our legal community in this state for many, many years. And I first encountered him when he chaired the Governor's Commission on Capital Punishment. And my then boss, Ted Gottfried, was a member, and Scott Turow served on it. And I was impressed when I went to those meetings at the level of discourse. And I was further impressed when Tom didn't just flop the 89 recommendations on the governor's desk and walk away, but tenaciously, relentlessly talked and wrote and nudged the Supreme Court, legislators, me, until death penalty reform was enacted. It wasn't everything we wanted it to be, but it was a damn sight better than what we had. And I will say that in the heat of that fight, in what I thought, frankly, was the dying hours of death penalty reform, I got a call from Senator, not then President, but Senator John Cullerton, who said, Scott Turow has an idea. I just got off the phone with him, and he has a guy you should call. So my colleague Jim Covington and I called Scott Turow, and he had a suggestion of a very fine police officer who was able to help us negotiate through a very gnarly provision and get the bill to the point where law enforcement could support it. So over the years, Tom has reformed the death penalty in the great state of Illinois. He has written many articles about it. He has argued and won United States Supreme Court cases, and at a time when most people would have been retiring and enjoying his grandchildren, as he most definitely does, he decided to take a little trip to Guantanamo Bay and has successfully represented some of the detainees there. But I think the thing that says the most about Tom is the fact that when John Hanlon called him to see if he would be willing to present this award tonight, he said, well, I'm supposed to be flying to New Mexico, but what the heck? I'll delay it a day. So, ladies and gentlemen, please welcome an esteemed member of the legal community, a very good friend, Tom Sullivan.
Thank you. It's a real pleasure to be here. And as I look around, I see the future here in the students that are here. They're the ones that will be doing the work long after we're gone. And I hope you stick with it, the young men and women that are here. I'm here to introduce Scott Turow. I hired Scott as an assistant state's attorney back in about 1978 or so. And I made the mistake at that time, which I have rued to this day, of extracting a firm promise from him that he would never write a book about me. But in any event, you can't always tell the future. Scott was one of the fine assistant U.S. attorneys. He and Jeremy Margolis and I tried the single most important case I tried as United States attorney, the one against Attorney General Scott, Bill Scott, who was tried and convicted of tax evasion, and then went on to work extensively on the so-called Graylord investigation of the Cook County judiciary that we had instituted. He has done a great deal of work in the area of innocence, and he was one of the key lawyers in the so-called Cruz Hernandez case out in Wheaton, in DuPage County. They were eventually, after much struggle, exonerated and released. As Kathy said, he served on the Governor's Commission on Capital Punishment with me and some of the others who were here. He wrote a wonderful little book called Ultimate Punishment that I think had a lot to do and will continue to have a lot to do with getting rid of the death penalty throughout the United States, which is, so far as I'm able to tell, a very mistaken and unfortunate law that we have left over from our ancestors. His writings, I won't say anything about because the public has already acclaimed him as one of the great lawyer writers of our time, lawyer mystery writers. And he has managed every 3 years or so to come up with another bestseller that captures the interest. And Scott, what was the name of that man who played the lead in The Presumed Innocent?
Harrison Ford.
Who?
Harrison Ford.
Harrison Ford, that's it, yeah. I have noticed as I've entered this 82nd year, the inability to retain the names of people.
I've noticed it as I've entered my 62nd.
But he is a dear friend of mine, and 2 beautiful daughters, and a wonderful family man. And I'll tell you what I admire most about Scott Turow. He is obviously intelligent and forthright and honorable. But the thing that captures me the most is his constancy. He is the constant man. He is no different today than he was the day I first met him. There's no phoniness or puffed up ego about Scott Turow. Is that okay? I'm finished?
No,
Oh,
sorry.
okay. Well, I am.
You have as much time as you need.
No, I'm finished. I got the message, Scott. Scott, come on up here and get this award, which I am most pleased to give you on behalf of this wonderful organization.
Well, I want to thank, first of all, the many supporters of the Illinois Innocence Project who are here, because they would not be doing their good work without you. I want to say how honored I am to be here with the previous winners of this award, people like my friend Mike Metnick and Senator Durbin. You know, it'd be hard to convince the great majority of Americans that public life is full of talented, honorable people. But certainly we in Illinois are uniquely blessed. And I really believe we have the greatest senator serving in the United States Senate, serving us. And Senator Durbin makes all of us proud so often that he is our senator. So thank you for your service and dedicating your life to the cause of justice in the way you have. I am humbled and flattered to receive this award. There are many people in this room who know that I am not really deserving of it. and fortunately, I am among them. I don't say that out of false modesty, but my life is a divided life. I've been privileged to work on some great cases and some great causes, which Tom was kind enough to mention, but there are lots of people here, like Ted Gottfried, or John Hanlon, or Mike, or Tom, who have really given their lives to being defenders of the innocents, full-time, for many, many, many years. And I am their great admirers for their dedication. And to use a word Tom used, constancy. Certainly no one has had a greater impact on my life as a lawyer than Tom Sullivan. He, as he said, hired me in the U.S. Attorney's Office. I served in both the U.S. Merit Selection Commission, which Senator Durbin was kind enough to appoint both Tom and me to, which made recommendations to Senator Durbin and Senator Mosley Braun on appointees to the federal judiciary in the U.S. Attorney's Office, the U.S. Marshal. And I served with Tom when he was chair of Governor Ryan's Capital Punishment Commission. But of course, no experience mattered more to me than the fact that I came into the practice of law at Tom's right elbow as an assistant U.S. attorney who, in my first year of practice, found myself assigned as the junior prosecutor to what really was, for many of us, the case of a lifetime against the sitting Attorney General of this state, William J. Scott, who, among other things, was far and away the most popular elected official in the state. He had won re-election with an 84% mandate when we proceeded to trial against him. And of course, Tom was somewhat feared when he came to the U.S. Attorney's Office because his whole experience was as an antagonist of that office. He'd been a defense lawyer, I think, for 26 years when he became U.S. Attorney, and I happened to be an intern in the office when he on his first day, and he called all the assistants into the ceremonial courtroom on the 25th floor of the Dirksen building, and he looked at them and he said, "If I ever catch any of you doing anything unfair, I will fire you." And of course, that scared all of them. It sounded pretty good to me, though, because I was hoping for a job in the office and it sounded like there might be some turnover. But I really was privileged. I did not do a judicial clerkship, but my time with Tom really, especially working on the Scott case, was definitely the formative period in my life as a lawyer, and I am grateful to him for any of the good habits I have as a lawyer, and do not hold him responsible for the many bad ones. But certainly from Tom Sullivan, you can learn first and foremost dogged dedication to the cause of justice, and I thank Tom for nurturing that in me. I do have to recall a Sunday morning at 7 a.m. while we were on trial in the Scott case when Tom called my house and he said to my former wife, "Annette, this is Tom Sullivan," and she responded, "Of course, who else would call at 7 a.m. on Sunday morning?" But that doggedness in pursuit of justice is a trait I greatly admire in Tom. It led him, although he rarely gets credit for it, to initiate the Graylord investigations, and he did it in the face of somewhat questionable Illinois Supreme Court precedent that would have seemed to have prohibited it. So he literally was putting his right to practice law on the line, but he knew what was right and he knew what had to be done. And frankly, the Circuit Court of Cook County is a much healthier, much finer place today, and that began with Tom Sullivan's efforts and his courage. In 1994, I was representing Alejandro Hernandez, one of the co-defendants in the celebrated and infamous Nicarico case. And Rolando Cruz's lawyer, Larry Marshall, called me, and he said, you know, Scott, I'm thinking of establishing a center for wrongful convictions at Northwestern. And he said, I want to do it in part because I think that this innocence issue will be a way to turn around public opinion about the death penalty. And I, in my wisdom, I was, of course, full of fire and fury about the Nicarico case. That was hard for me when I got involved in that defense to believe that people had actually been treated that way in the United States of America. They had been railroaded in the most ugly way imaginable. But I assumed at that point in time in 1994 that their case was anomalous, that it was just a matter of a few bad apples in one prosecutor's office. And I didn't get it. And I said to Larry, oh, you know that's not really the problem with the death penalty. Innocence isn't the problem with the death penalty. And I probably would still say that. But of course, I grotesquely underestimated how widespread the problem of innocence is throughout our criminal justice system. I salute Larry most of all because he had, in point of fact, found the pivot point. I think that's a word Senator Durbin used before, in terms of American sentiment about the death penalty. Because through the pioneering work that began with Barry Scheck and Peter Neufeld in New York through the use of DNA, in demonstrating the reality that there were many people on death row in the United States, 130 of them now established, to be legally innocent of the charges that put them on death row. It has caused Americans to rethink capital punishment, and it undoubtedly had a significant role in the reversal of field that took place here in the state of Illinois. Somebody mentioned my friend John Cullerton before, and after I got to know John originally after the Capital Punishment Commission had finished its report, and at that point John was the chair of the Senate Judiciary Committee, and it was late in the legislative session. They were having hearings nonstop. I was testifying in support of the recommendations of our commission. And John, on the record, publicly said, you know, look, you've got 7 senators sitting here. He said, I'm not giving any secrets away in telling you that all of them think now and then about running for higher office. And they all know that when they do it, they will be defined by their opponents by 1 or 2 votes in long legislative careers. And if we do anything about the death penalty, that is what is going to be used by our opponents to define us. And I take particular pleasure in telling that story because it was John Cullerton who called me probably 3 years ago. And he said, you know, this was after the innocence movement had taken hold, after the state did not turn on its ear when Governor Ryan commuted those on death row, or when then State Senator Obama led the way to serious death penalty reform in this state. And John called, he said, you know, I think we have a chance to abolish the death penalty in this state. And he said, and I'll tell you why. He said, it's because we've changed minds of conservatives. He said they're not going to come out and say it publicly, but a lot of them no longer believe that it's worth the fight. They too are discouraged. They too have had second thoughts. And I take my hat off to Senate President Cullerton for the role he played, along with many, many others, in moving capital punishment reform through the General Assembly. Of course, the fact that the death penalty is no longer law in Illinois is an achievement for the General Assembly, Governor Quinn, and the people of the state of Illinois, but it does not solve, and to some extent obscures a bit the problem of innocence, because we care about innocence the most when somebody's life is going to be taken and that person is innocent. And the reality, of course, is that the systemic problems that bring innocent people to death row continue to exist. There are the problems of bad eyewitness identifications, of ill-motivated witnesses who accuse people of crimes that they themselves committed and somehow gain the confidence of the police. There is the phenomenon I would never have believed in when I was a prosecutor, the phenomenon of false confessions. But it turns out that people under psychological pressure, often people who are being interrogated by officers who are far more intelligent than they, that people can say things to inculpate themselves that aren't true. And as I said, I wouldn't have believed it, but it happens. And one of the great reforms that Tom in particular was responsible for in our Capital Punishment Commission report, and that really ought to be widespread throughout the criminal justice system, is the videotaping of the interrogation of murder case suspects. It should be, as I said, broader in application throughout the criminal justice system. And of course, it's turned out that people in law enforcement, many of them love it now because they're done with the totally fallacious motions to suppress statements that used to take their time and clutter the justice system and raise doubts about the probity of police officers who went in cases where there was no reason to doubt them. But the biggest problem in our criminal justice system since I started, and it continues today, is underrepresentation. The American people continue to have an appetite to lock up bad guys, and we can't blame them for that. But they do not understand that justice doesn't come cheap. We have a process that grants rights to people, and if the gun is ever pointed at you, the gun of the criminal justice system, you understand how important those rights are. Tom used to say to us, well, would you think it was fair if somebody was doing that to your brother? And we forget that lesson too often. We do not have adequate funds in our system, not just to hire lawyers, and our public defenders do an extraordinary job, given how outmanned they are by the prosecutor's offices and by law enforcement. But we don't, not only do we not have enough money for lawyers, to hire lawyers, but we don't have enough money for investigation. I remember when I did I think the first thing I did for Tom in the U.S. Attorney's Office was to write a research memo about closing arguments and all the many different ways that the Seventh Circuit had shaken a finger at the U.S. Attorney's Office for the Northern District of Illinois. And Tom said, I just wish I could get young lawyers to understand that lawyers don't win cases, facts win cases. And without adequate funds for the investigation of the defense of criminal cases, we will continue to imprison the innocent, notwithstanding the frequent good faith of prosecutors and police officers. And we need to remember that justice does not come cheap, that every time we eliminate funding for defense lawyers, for investigators, and I know that we are in straitened financial times, but every time we do that, we are voting, as it were, to send innocent people to the penitentiary. And we need to stop doing that. We as Americans take no pride in that, and we shouldn't. At any rate, I thank you deeply for this award. I am proudest of the company I now keep, and I salute all of you for your support for this wonderful project, and I thank you deeply for the honor that you've given me. Thanks very much.
You're watching the Illinois Channel, an independent nonprofit corporation formed to provide gavel-to-gavel coverage of Illinois state government and other public affairs events taking place across Illinois.